The Limitations of Large Language Models in the Quest for AGI, a Neuroscience Perspective, by Spencer Antonio Marlen-Starr, published on August 29th of 2023, and by GoPen AI on Medium. Introduction and motivation for this article. As someone deeply entrenched in the world of data science and economics with a side interest in neuroscience, I've always been fascinated by the intersection of artificial intelligence and human cognition. My journey into this realm was further fueled by my frequent recent interactions prompting ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT version 4, starting back in early April of this year, to help me complete my work creating SERIMA, that is, seasonal autoregressive integrated moving average line charts for forecasting aerial wildfire operations figures in the United States, as part of the capstone project in my master's program in data analytics engineering at George Mason University, which I was finishing at the time. Especially ChatGPT 4, but even 3.5, was so astonishingly helpful at me writing code in R when time was of the essence that it piqued my interest in these large language models enough to get me to binge a few hour-long podcast episodes on AI or machine learning or data science podcasts that talked all about them with guests like the CEO of OpenAI, their chief researcher, Stephen Wolfram, and several others. This experience led me to ponder some critical questions. Can language models like ChatGPT-4 ever achieve artificial general intelligence? And what can neuroscience, particularly the work of the psychiatrist Ian McGilchrist, teach us about the limitations of these models? Then in late April, so later that same month, I happened to randomly stumble upon an episode of a very different type of podcast, which I only listen to occasionally, where Dr. McGilchrist, someone I'm familiar with, to the extent of having listened to him as a guest on several podcasts years back, in about 2016 or so, promoting his 2009 book, which is all about the difference between the left and right hemispheres of the human brain. And in this podcast, he was there to talk about a new book, which he just published in 2021. And what was it about, you may ask? You guessed it, the hemispheric specialization in the human brain yet again. Hemispheric specialization, more than just left and right. Let's start with the basics. The human brain is divided into two hemispheres, each specialized for different tasks. The left hemisphere is generally associated with language, logical reasoning, and analytical thinking. In contrast, the right hemisphere is linked to spatial abilities, creativity, and holistic processing. However, this is a simplified model. Both hemispheres are highly interconnected and collaborate to produce complex cognitive functions. Ian McGilchrist, whose work I've been following, emphasizes the importance of the right hemisphere in providing the contextual, big picture framework within which the left hemisphere operates. Language models. Impressive but incomplete. Language models like GPT-4 are statistical engines designed to process and generate text based on patterns in the data they were trained on. While they can mimic human-like text generation, they lack the architecture that mimics the specialized functions of the left and right hemispheres of the human brain. They don't have a right hemisphere to provide context or a left hemisphere to analyze that context. They are purely statistical engines. One of the most glaring limitations of current language models is their inability to understand or generate meaning in the way a human does. In the human brain, the right hemisphere plays a crucial role in understanding the broader context and emotional nuances, something that language models are not equipped to handle. For instance, while GPT-4 can generate text that appears coherent and logical, it lacks the ability to truly understand or feel the emotional weight of the words it produces. This is a significant drawback when considering tasks that require a deep understanding of human emotions, ethical considerations, or cultural contexts. Another limitation lies in the model's inability to perform metacognitive functions, which are essential for problem-solving and creative thinking. In humans, the left hemisphere is adept at analytical tasks and can work within the framework provided by the right hemisphere so to solve complex problems. Language models without GPT-4, however, operate without this kind of hierarchical structure. They cannot reflect on their own thought processes, question their assumptions, or generate new problem-solving strategies on the fly. This lack of self-awareness and adaptability is a major roadblock on the path to achieving artificial general intelligence. A good example of this would be all the times where I knew the answer to a question I asked ChatGPT, it gave me the wrong answer, and I told it that its answer was incorrect, then supplied it with the correct answer. It always agrees and sometimes elaborates and makes sense while doing so. It would be hard to imagine a person with an intact brain which you could do this with so regularly. These additional layers of complexity in human cognition underscore just how far we are from achieving AGI through current language models. While they are powerful tools for specific tasks, their architecture is fundamentally different from that of the human brain, lacking the nuanced interplay between the left and right hemispheres that is crucial for higher order thinking and understanding. Connectionism and AGI, a long road ahead. The connectionist approach, which uses artificial neural networks, aims to mimic the neural processes of the brain. However, let us be clear, the current state of artificial neural networks is far more simple than the biological networks found in the human brain. The human brain consists of approximately 86 billion neurons connected by trillions of synapses. In contrast, ANNs are far less complex and lack many features of biological networks, such as various types of neurons and neurotransmitter dynamics. Neuroplasticity, the missing ingredient in AGI. David Eagleman's work in Live Wired explores the concept of neural plasticity, the ability of the brain to rewire itself in response to new experiences and challenges. This adaptability is a cornerstone of human intelligence and learning. In contrast, the current language models like GPT-4 are static in their architecture. Once trained, they do not have the ability to adapt or rewire themselves based on new information or contexts. This lack of plasticity is another significant limitation in their quest for AGI. One of the most compelling arguments Eagleman makes is that the traditional analogy of the brain as a combination of hardware and software is fundamentally misguided. In reality, the brain is live-wired, as he puts it, meaning it serves as both the hardware and the software simultaneously, constantly reconfiguring itself. This dynamic adaptability allows the brain to learn from new experiences, adapt to new situations, and even recover from injuries by reallocating functions to different regions. This is a far cry from the static architecture of artificial neural networks, which once trained are fixed in their configurations and capabilities. Furthermore, the naive comparison between the number of parameters in an artificial neural network and the number of neurons in the human brain falls drastically short of capturing the essence of what makes the brain unique. In the brain, each neuron is not just a simple processing unit, it's a complex adaptive system capable of changing its connections and functions. This live wiring aspect of neurons makes them far more versatile and powerful than the parameters in an artificial neural network, which are fixed after the training phase. The concept of the brain as live-wired, adaptive Livewire underscores the limitations of current language models in their quest for AGI. While these models may boast an impressive number of parameters, they lack the dynamic self-reconfiguring nature of the human brain, which is essential for true intelligence and adaptability. And on a related note to where I think Eagleman's perspective can speak to the topic at hand, Stephen Wolfram says the following in his book-length blog post explaining ChatGPT. Quote, "But even within the framework of existing neural nets, there's currently a crucial limitation. Neural net training as it's now done is fundamentally sequential, with the effects of each batch of examples being propagated back to update the weights. And indeed, with current computer hardware, even taking into account GPUs, most of a neural network is idle most of the time during training, with just one part at a time being updated. And in a sense, this is because our current computers tend to have memory that is separate from their CPUs or GPUs. But in brains, it's presumably different. With every memory element that is a neuron, also being a potentially active computational element. And if we could set up our future computer hardware this way, it might become possible to do training much more efficiently. End of quote. He seems to be making a strikingly similar observation as I am here in this quote, which is that current artificial neural net architectures lack the fundamental dynamism which characterizes the neural networks in our brains. Ian McGilchrist's perspective, a fundamental gap. If McGilchrist's views about the fundamental role of the right hemisphere in human cognition are correct, then current language models are indeed fundamentally limited. They lack the ability to understand context and holistic reasoning, which are crucial for artificial general intelligence. This is a significant gap that needs to be addressed in future models. According to McGilchrist, the right hemisphere's role is not just supplementary, but foundational to human cognition. It provides the essential framework within which the left hemisphere can operate effectively. The right hemisphere is responsible for understanding the world in its lived context, not as an abstracted model. It perceives things as interconnected rather than isolated objects that can be categorized or manipulated. This perspective suggests that any attempt to create AGI without incorporating the kind of holistic, contextual understanding that the right hemisphere provides is likely to fall short. Moreover, McGilchrist argues that the left hemisphere, while excellent at deconstructing and analyzing, can often miss the forest for the trees by focusing too narrowly on details. This is another aspect where language models like GPT-4 show their limitations. They can analyze data and generate text based on patterns, but they can't step back to question the broader implications or ethical considerations of their outputs. They lack the ability to synthesize information in a way that takes into account the complexities and nuances of human experience, something that McGilchrist argues is a vital function of the right hemisphere. Another related downside of the left hemisphere, which I argue is a much closer parallel to LLMs when compared with the right hemisphere, is that the left hemisphere doesn't know it needs the wisdom and added perspective of the right hemisphere, but the right does know that it needs what the left has to offer. This is why he called his first book on the subject The Master and His Emissary. The right hemisphere is the master, and his emissary is the left hemisphere. Of course, a master who hires an emissary will know he needs him, that's why he hired him. But the emissary who does not see the big picture, because he does not need to, can sometimes think himself tall. The left hemisphere is overconfident, while the right hemisphere tends to be more realistic. I see a clear parallel in the way that small sections of output, which are hallucinations, within larger responses are rarely ever pointed out by ChatGPT itself as parts of its response which it has less confidence in. The most I ever get is a general disclaimer at the top. These insights from McGilchrist offer a sobering perspective on the current state of language models and their quest for AGI. While these models have made remarkable strides in mimicking certain aspects of human cognition, they are fundamentally lacking in areas that neuroscience, particularly the work of Ian McGilchrist, has shown to be crucial for a well-rounded, nuanced understanding of the world. The path to AGI, an open question. The question of whether mimicking the human brain is the best or only path to AGI is still open. It's possible that entirely different architectures or even different paradigms, such as quantum computing, might be more effective. The future of AGI will likely require a multidisciplinary approach, incorporating insights from neuroscience, psychology, computer science, and perhaps even philosophy. Summary and future directions. In summary, while language models like GPT-4 are impressive in their capabilities, they are fundamentally limited in terms of their ability to get us all the way to AGI, especially when viewed through the lens of neuroscience and the work of Ian McGilchrist on the hemispheric differences. The path to AGI is likely to be a journey full of surprises and insights from multiple fields. As a data scientist and a keen observer of both AI and neuroscience, I can't help but be excited about the future possibilities. However, let us not forget the limitations and tread this path with informed caution. The end.